Real people, real stories, and real challenges that break the status quo. I'm your host, Zivile, and welcome to Perception Paradox. Welcome to Perception Paradox, and today's guest is Toma Molerov, a life and business coach, community builder, and best-selling author, and many more things I can tell about him, but I think he will share himself, and we will explore the deeper philosophy that has shaped Thomas' life and his views on designing our lives. So let's not wait and let's jump into it. So, welcome to Perception Paradox, Thomas.
Thank you so much, Zivile. Glad to be here. Glad to chat with you guys. Yeah.
Likewise. How are you today?
Really good. Today is one of my busy days. Weird enough. Normally, I don't have a busy day. Actually, I tend to schedule my days in a way where I get to work 20 hours a week.
20 hours.
That is something that I've been pursuing for quite some time, and it has worked really well for my clients too, actually. So it's always surprising. And yeah, so today is actually an unlikely day where I got to actually do calls back to back. So this is an amazing one. It's been great, though. I have to be fair. I really, really enjoy it. So that's where I'm at. Yeah.
Okay, thank you then so much for taking time and joining us today here at Perception Paradox. So you mentioned about the 20 hours week, and when you visit your LinkedIn or information on the search web, I don't know, I just see a lot of different professions, passions, then some kind of mentions as well that you've traveled the world. Wow, that's a lot. So what was the common thread or driving force behind this each shift you experienced in your life? Is there a common thread?
Yeah, totally. I mean, I think, beginning as a student, I was pretty much where everybody else was, right? I was at a point where I had no idea what career I want to do or what I want to work in. I had no idea how much money I could make or what and anything. I was basically living off. I was doing tons of internships, and I was also single and had no clue about relationships at all. In fact, they didn't work for me. Right until I was 23, I had no relationship ever, and so I thought I'm too stupid for relationships for a while. And I chose communication science back then to study because I thought, this gives me time to figure out what the hell I actually want to do, because everything else was a no. And so I basically was clueless in my career. I was clueless in love. And I mean, financially, I was, I guess, okay. But, the classic student life, basically, you take the things that are cheap and free. That was pretty much me. And it's interesting. I think that was me 10 years ago. Yeah. And
Okay.
so that's where the whole journey began. And honestly, I had actually no clue until yeah, probably 23, 24. And I basically just I did have I did travel the world to some extent, meaning I chose internships sometimes that were abroad, things like that. So my passions were always to explore other cultures.
And
But
what happened when you were 23 or 24 years old when you started getting the clue?
yeah, so that was very interesting. First thing that happened is I joined a student organization called ISAC. So that was interesting
Fellow
because
Isaacer.
fellow ISACers indeed, because that gave me a little bit of an idea of who I am, what I want to do, and what's up with me. Right, I never actually took time to explore properly who I am and what I'm standing for. And that gave me the chance, because in ISAC what you do mainly is leadership development, which actually many people misunderstand leadership development because they think, oh, as leaders, I need to learn how to motivate my people. Not at all. Leadership development, actually, you need to understand who the fuck you are. Sorry for the language, right? And why you're going where you're going, so that you can communicate it and others can get inspired by that.
Yeah.
And that's essentially what happened for me. I think I figured out a little bit of where I'm going. And in that process, I figured out a lot of other things. For example, love. And and the career as well. Like all of it kind of fell into place because I started to look deeper into who I am and who are the people that I am really good around.
And did you figure that out by yourself, or someone was guiding you, helping
I mean,
along the way?
yeah, I mean, we had we had quite a few conferences in which I was guided, obviously. So in
Yeah.
which conference I was guided to party, I was guided to reflect, right? So definitely there was many mentors by my side. And especially on the first conference that I had, that was very interesting. I remember finishing that first conference and thinking, holy shit, this exists, right? Because until then, I thought, it's like life. I really thought like life is kind of like so. I expected more.
Mm-hmm.
and and at the end of that conference, I really thought, I literally told myself, holy shit, this actually exists. And I literally raised my hand. I just want to say, thank you guys for showing me that this actually exists. This is what I've been looking for all this time. And I kept asking myself, hey, how can I do more of that? And maybe I can do this paid. And when I say of that, it literally felt like life is a party.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm also working, but it did not feel like work. Right? So you get up and you
Mm-hmm.
literally can't wait to start the party because it feels like a party. Like a party is happening, you're invited to one. Do you want to go? All right. Or for the introverts, there's a party in your house just with you and your pets, and
Yeah.
and you earn money that way. So that's a little how it felt, and I tried looking for ways of how I can do more of that. And to finish the point, like at the end of that conference, that person showed a video of that was like it's called the 3 most important questions by Vishnu Lakiani. You
Oh
can check it on
yeah,
YouTube.
yeah.
Right, and I saw that video and I thought, this office looks really cool. Who the hell is this? And for some reason I thought, I think I would like to work with these guys. It seems like it's the same thing, but paid. And
Yeah,
I was like,
exactly.
let me do that. Let me see if I can do that. And that's exactly what happened.
So then you applied for Mind Valley and said, okay, bye Europe, I'm going to Malaysia.
Yeah, actually, I mean, I had 2 years before that where I did my master's, and because I felt like I didn't really have any work experience, to be honest. They had positions open, but I had none of them, and so I worked into it. So I worked for customer support, project management, things like
Yeah.
that. And you'll probably see that while I was a student, my philosophy was the studies won't get me the job or the
Mm-hmm.
idea of what I want to do. They give me the space to explore. And so I think I did basically a ridiculous amount of jobs while I was a student. I did promotions. I was director in a camp in the US. I did, I don't know, all kinds of design work, facilitation, teaching, I don't know, a bunch of different stuff, sales, right? So a lot of different things just to test out if I'm any
From where
good, if
is
I
that
like it.
curiosity coming from to test out things? Some people, even in the student years, they just find a regular one part-time job or full-time job and they continue even if they don't like it. Well, from where is your perception and views?
Yeah, good
I don't know,
question.
coming.
Um, I'm I'm not sure where it came from back then, but I mean, oh, actually, I know where it came from. So I was kind of lucky to read this one article when I was 20. It's really funny because I was
Okay.
super lost, right? I was like, no idea what the hell to do with my life. And so I was really lost, and I read this article, and this article was really good because it gave me, first of all, it gave me two articles actually, but the first one gave me an idea of what is actually happening, what I'm trying to do. And it was saying, hey, here's the 20 skills of the future. And I was like, okay, I guess I'll choose something that in the future will be safe. So actually, like everybody, I would choose something safe. And
Mm-hmm.
that article shared that emotional intelligence and social intelligence is something that will probably never be replaced by anything, even AI, right?
Yeah.
And I was like, okay, then let me get good at that, I guess, right? And so I went into that a little bit, and I thought, for me, the philosophy was this: it was, university is not there to get me a job. University is for me to figure it out, and the way
Mm-hmm.
how I figure it out is by doing everything, or doing all kinds of things, right? Until I figure it out. And I was at the end of my bachelor, I was still freaking out, right? By the time I applied for ISAC, I was like, oh, geez, still haven't, even in my master's, to be fair, even then, I was still figuring it out. But I subscribed to this idea of, what's it called, of being the average of the 5 people closest to me.
Mm-hmm.
And so I started to make inspiring people and places something that's constantly on my feed.
So basically, you were that curious person who was in the university trying things, doing things, figuring things out, and then out of a sudden, everything clicked. Okay, maybe I know what I want to do. And then you kind of went to Malaysia, to Mind Valley, to continue pursuing your dreams, getting closer to your
True.
dream life, right?
Yeah, and just to want to add here for the curiosity part, if you
Mm-hmm.
find yourself not curious, because that's fairly normal, right? There is an easy way to get back,
How?
actually. Yes. And the easy way is to get out of your current environment for even a brief time, right? Because you need to kind of it's the picture you want to get is like, if you're not the curiosity is actually your normal state. So if you're not, then usually what's happening is you're in a field, in a grass field, and there's a shit ton of fog, and that fog is basically all the stuff you've been constantly doing on autopilot, and so you need a moment to detach, and usually the curiosity will come back. So an easy, like a brief trip or travel anywhere else that disconnects you from your environment does the job very quickly, and you'll get curious about other things, right? Yeah.
Absolutely. Especially the solo trips when you literally put yourself into unknown.
Yeah.
So that really helps you grow. I've noticed this one concept online while looking into your activities, that designing life, right? And you're kind of an advocate of designing, creating one's life. You're also a life coach. Do you believe there is room for serendipity or going with the flow in this kind of more structured approach?
Oh yeah, for sure. Actually, all of it is. So it
Mm-hmm.
sometimes I feel that, and I get that it feels that way, but I mean, the way how I go about it is I choose the vision I want to create,
Mm-hmm.
and then I simply paste it onto my wall, or I create a vision board or anything that reminds me of that vision. But I don't really create a step-by-step plan. Does that make sense? It's often counterintuitive. People would say this makes no sense, kind of bullshit. But what it does is it gives the part of my mind that's freaking out about the future, it gives it certainty, and it calms it down. So all I'm trying to do is calm down, get some sort of direction, and give my mind a way to make sense of anything I'm doing.
Mm-hmm.
And usually we did, right? We did the 30-year vision into the future. Oftentimes when you do a 30-year vision into the future, which is so far away that, you don't know anything, right? How the fuck will my life look like in 30 years? I don't know. When you do that, it calms your mind down, and anything else that happens becomes an easy yes or no. Like if you want to hold on to that kind of idea, it becomes fairly easy to notice what is the way to go and what is not a way to go. So that's been really interesting because I noticed
Mm-hmm.
that really works. Normally, when we create a vision for ourselves and we design that up front, we're not saying in 30 years, I want that. What we're
Mm-hmm.
really saying is, I want that right now, right? Because there is no such thing as time for our mind. It can't
Oh, yeah.
actually. Yeah, right? It projects into the future, sure. But what you're really saying, what you're really doing when you do 30 years in the future vision is you're saying, okay, you're detaching yourself from your limitations from today that you perceive. And you're
Mm-hmm.
saying, well, 30 years from now, anything could happen. And you get to dream, and you're seeing literally what it is you want right now. And so this becomes really interesting, because then when you see that, especially in the coaching environment, when I see that, I can tell, okay, this is exactly what the person wants right now. It's not what they want in 30 years, right? So we can already go for that.
Mm-hmm.
And some of these things are much easier than people expect they are.
Well, it sounds a bit like manifestation, no? Like kind of manifesting your better realities with more actionable steps.
Yes,
Or no?
exactly.
Mm-hmm.
Exactly it is. And I mean, the thing is, we all actually are manifesting, if you say
Yeah.
it this way. From a scientific perspective, you're basically first thinking, then you're speaking it out, and then everything that has been created has been, created in your mind first.
Mm-hmm.
So if you want to see it in that way, yes. It's not, however, oh, I'm just going to say something, lean back, and do nothing, right? People usually have that idea, then it means I'm just gonna sit on my ass. Right?
Yeah.
Not quite. It's just that it works a little differently than you working on a to-do list, which
Mm-hmm.
is the common perception. What you really do is you're working on your vibe, right? So as an example, I can give you the love example,
Okay, please
right?
do.
Right. So I was basically single, my love life was basically non-existent. And I thought, at some point, I thought to myself, I was in Austria, banging my head against the wall, and like, what the fuck is wrong with me? That was literally what I was telling myself. And there was a moment when I had scheduled a date, and that date, it was supposed to be like a bar. We meet up at a bar at like 10:30, 11 p.m. So pretty late, right? And I thought it was an important one. I felt like this was something I really wanted to go there.
Mhm.
And my date told me at that point, sorry, I can't make it. It was a last minute, can't make it. Like she was with friends elsewhere, so she was like, I don't think I can come. And I noticed in this moment, that was the choice, right? This was the moment of choice that changed my love life completely, because the moment of choice was, do I do what I set out to do, or do I change my direction based on what somebody else said? And that was very new, because in that
Okay.
moment I was so frustrated that I said to myself, you know what, it's okay, you can do whatever you like, but I know I'm going to this bar today because I said to go to the bar. I said I'm going to the bar and I'm going to have a great time, and whoever is there will be the right people. And so I was, so what I actually said is, I already left, but it's okay if you can't make it. That's what I actually said.
Okay.
And so I literally walked and left, and I thought, if she comes, she comes. If she doesn't come, I'll see who else is there. Because I just decided that I will have a great time, and I will have a great love life. And that decision changed everything. She actually showed up then.
Oh, here we go.
And then we, I know, and that did lead to actually us being in a relationship for a couple of years.
Oh, nice. Okay.
And the same thing happened with my wife. Now, actually, there was a point where I had that chance to say, oh, I shouldn't, like, I was actually on the way to a date, and to another date, and the date canceled last minute. And I was like, should I still go to the restaurant, or should I change my plans because circumstances changed? And I thought, I love Japanese restaurants, I'll go there. So I went, and my wife texted me randomly for the very first time from Tinder while I was in the restaurant having the best time of my life. And I kid you not,
Amazing.
but the date wouldn't have, right? I wouldn't have met her, I think, that night, or nothing would have happened if I didn't go.
Yeah. Well, something else would have happened, but wouldn't have happened what happened.
Right. Yes. So
Amazing.
anyway, I mean, so when you come to serendipity, manifestation, all of that shit, what I'm trying to say is, if you make a decision where you say, no matter what happens in my environment, I'm certain I will show up in my best possible way for that, then everything else can relax into your presence, right? And there's a moment when somebody says, I will be there no matter what, that everybody else feels safe and certain that they can go to the party and at least meet you.
Totally. I always like to say the universe has your back in a way.
Yeah, for sure.
I mean, okay, very, very interesting and nice story. Thank you for sharing. But then going into this kind of designing life, love life. So you're a life coach right now. Is that your main activity, or is still surrounded by many different activities? Maybe you're writing your new book. I don't know.
Yeah.
Are you?
That's I'm not yet. I know I wrote a couple, but no, I am not writing the next one yet. Yeah, currently life and business coaching. Yes, I do create some programs for some of my clients, for example, where coaches learn how to do that better. But pretty much, yeah, with clients. So with some clients, I do on life coaching, meaning helping them, like, double their income, reduce their time to 20 hours, like I do. With some of them, it's business coaching, where I help their team do well and enjoy the growth and set a vision for themselves. And
I'm very curious. That's amazing. But I'm very curious to ask, how does that 20 hours per week work, right? Because if we look back a bit, we also had Tim Ferriss advocating a lot about the 4 hours weekend right now, kind of changing his perspective. And when we think about building something and creating something, right, it really requires time. If I look back, what I've been doing, I mean, with the 20 hours per week, I wouldn't have moved the needle in a way. How does that work? Can you briefly share? Or maybe it's for a already specific stage of the business where you can really deliver good results in less time, or how?
No, I hear you. So it's true that sometimes there's moments where you want to learn a lot and you want to do a lot, right? But I would consider them brief moments, like sprints. And these moments should never last for longer than maybe a month or a few months max, maybe a quarter at the max, right? Because generally, I've noticed that there was a point where I witnessed that I'm actually making more mistakes when I work more. Have you noticed that? Or you're like, oh, if you overwork yourself, or even if you work more than 20 hours, your brain oftentimes actually is not capable to be creative or smart or anything. There's no space. And I noticed that for myself at some point, that I had a to-do list of 16 things when I started working at Mindvalley. I jumped into a marketing role back then, and I had no idea about marketing at all. I had a to-do list of 16 things, and I thought, all these 16 are very important. I tried to figure all of that out, and nothing worked. Like my launch just didn't perform. Nothing worked. And at some point, I really screwed up because I was overworking so much. And I taught myself that this is very important, that I have to prove myself to my boss and people and others and everyone, to myself and whatever, right? The whole I did this for appreciation or for promotion. Yeah, that's like a common story, right? Like, oh, I'm just going to work like really hard right now so I get a promotion. Okay. And so back then I almost screwed up. I almost got fired. And I was like, ooh.
Was it because you did not deliver? Like you overworked yourself, or?
So so it wasn't delivering properly, and I also started making big mistakes. And I was like, ooh. And then at some point my boss said to me like, dude, you have one job, what's happening? And I got so triggered by this one job. A joke. It was a joke, but I got so triggered because I thought, oh man, what? Right? And it took me a while to reorganize my thoughts until my anger subsided. Because oftentimes when you're angry, you want to give yourself a moment to, collect yourself. It's not very smart to talk your emotions out in the open for no reason without having processed them. Many people do that on social media all the time, right now, actually, a lot, right? Oh, yeah. So so that's why you want to actually always notice, because there's always a lesson there. And I was wondering at that point, after like an hour or two after calming down, I thought, hey, what if there's actually a lesson? I remember a friend of mine shared, in every joke, there's a lot of truth and a bit of joke. And I thought, what if that's the same here? And I thought, what if he really thinks I have one job? And I started wondering, what job is it? And I looked at all my to-do lists and I thought, which of these items could it be? And I noticed that it possibly is the one that I screwed up twice in a row. And I thought, what if I just did this perfectly and nothing else? Because I remembered that it wasn't my business, right? I was basically employed. So I was trying to fulfill the desires and needs
of the business.
Of the business, is right, yeah. And I mean, why would I assume that I know better than the person who started the thing or who runs it for so many years? And so I thought, okay, maybe he's right. Maybe actually I do have one job. Let me do this job really well. So I didn't say it really, but I just started doing this. And literally my to-do list, as you can imagine, if you have 15 things on your list and you witness all of a sudden that, let's assume that just one of them is important, right? Against my better judgment, and let's do this perfectly, you have all of a sudden a lot of time on your hands. And and not only that, but if you give it a bit of time, you will notice, for me, what happened is my launches started overperforming, right? I had only 10 hours of work per week. So I could even travel and work at the same time, right? Then I was like, this felt wrong first, because I thought, maybe what if somebody else is working their ass off, right? Because I'm not doing this stuff. But then I checked in with people, and nobody really actually had anything to say about it. I mean, nobody didn't care, but everyone was doing their own thing. And then I thought, maybe this was just me. And so I tried with a few clients to see if they would experience the same. They experienced the same thing. And I was like, okay. And what I realized, this is very clear for pretty much what's very true for many people, because we were very uncomfortable with conflict. So many people who are employed, for example, will not ask their boss What is it exactly that they care about when they're uncertain? But if they would say, hey, I would really love to understand how I can deliver the best results. And so what is the result you're looking at? What's the number you would like to grow? And or what's the metrics? And how often would you like me to report on them? If you would ask just that, right? You can give the person you're basically working for, you can give them certainty and so many different things. And also it frees you up a little bit because you don't have everything under control, but you can reduce the amount of things you would do. Because back then I thought I was responsible for the revenue. I wasn't.
Yeah, it's so interesting. Sometimes when we miscommunicate or misunderstand our kind of roles and missions, I really liked what you mentioned about downsizing and focusing on that one thing. And I look back to my career and everything, I was always, oh my God, I have to do this. I'm responsible for that. Instead of really asking, okay, so what's the key area we want to nail right now and just doing that thing. But
yeah,
you learn through doing, and it's good to share these stories so people can reflect and change the narrative of their own. Amazing. But so what you're sharing, I think that it also really kind of that success and so on depends on the mindset a lot. And you're known for having this kind of positive outlook on life and success. We have some shared friends, and I've heard from them, oh, Toma is very positive and you should talk to him. That's how we are in this conversation. While positivity is really crucial to have this happy, long life, that's what I do believe. What's been your most challenging period, and how do you navigate where, like, even positivity, just having the emotion of positivity and this mindset, not necessarily going to help to break through?
Right. I mean, having a positive mindset doesn't actually mean that you don't feel the negative shit. Right? You definitely feel the ups and downs. For me, it's more of it's a choice that's actually more difficult to make than the negative one, because we have a very negative bias in our society, right? We tend to look for problems. We tend to look for what's wrong, right? How often have you seen that it's more easy to look at what's wrong and criticize, right? How often have you seen, oh, it's so easy to see for myself what I did wrong, right? You criticize yourself, right? I've criticized myself more often than not. And so actually taking the positive side and say, no, you know what? Appreciate this. It actually takes effort, more effort than just being, oh, let me complain about this today, right? And so I think I noticed that it's just essential to develop that skill, to reorganize my mind, right? So I'll give you an example for that. I was last Monday, right? I woke up, felt really shit for no reason whatsoever, right? And for no reason whatsoever. And I woke up and I thought, you know what? This day is going to be shit. And then I noticed, because I've done so much work on myself, that I started telling myself a story of this day is going to be shit. And I realized that my story will make my day crappy. And I thought, hell no. That's not happening. And so I decided it will be a great day. And the fun thing is you can just decide that and it will just happen. There's another thing. There's something really, really crazy. Actually, I think it was beginning of this year. No, I think beginning of last year, something like that. I do have my biohacking method, basically, of living a long and healthy life, is following this one guy who once shared the lazy method of doing this. And that was going to the doctor once a year to do your yearly checkup and basically just going to your appointments and doing a yearly checkup. He's like, yeah, you don't need to to live, fairly decently long, or like the average, whatever, 80, 90 years. You don't need to do something super crazy. 80% of that is you actually moving your body, nutrition, exactly,
sleep,
eating, you actually
underestimated.
Sleeping. Right, so you're just doing the things that you would do anyways.
Yeah.
and then going for a yearly checkup like once a year or something, so that in case something's off, medicine
Okay.
can catch it, right? And funny enough, I was so skin wise, I do have quite a lot of moles,
Uh-huh.
and so I had my routine of actually going to a checkup every year, right? Super uncomfortable, but I still would do it. I'd go do it. My skin doctor would check it and would catch one, would basically remove a couple of moles. I'm very light, so yeah. And then I get a call from him, and he's like, "Dude, we took one of the moles out. That was a tumor." And I'm like, "Holy fucking shit, man!" Right? And in this moment, I basically got an immediate shock moment because you witness your mortality in the moment, right?
Yeah.
And then the moment after was like, "But I think we took everything out." And so I noticed how I went through this spiral of, "Oh my fucking god, I'm dying,"
Mm-hmm.
into this was just a blip, right? And it's interesting. I noticed that I had still the choice again to say and to lean in more into the story of, oh, now I am this guy with, the tumor or whatever. And the way how I speak about it will make my story. Right. And I think I shared with a friend that, and I was like, this fun thing happened. It was pretty hilarious, and she's like, "It's so funny that you actually shared this like such a hilarious thing." And I was like, "Yeah, because I was such a lucky dude because we caught it early because of my amazing pre-screening mechanism thing." Right.
Amazing.
And I was like, dude, like, it could have been, for somebody else, it would have been a story of sadness. For me, it was a story of luck.
That's how you take it, yeah, and where you put the energy.
So that matters, right? I mean, it matters, at least for me, it mattered because that thing disappeared so quickly, I didn't even see it coming. It was a quick, and I remember Marissa Peer says that as well. She's like, doing this stuff with people.
Yeah.
She had that stuff twice, and she's like, never identify with these things. If you say I am, whatever it is, your bad moment or your situation that you don't really feel great in, it's great to express it, but don't make it you. And I was like, great, I'll stick with that. That shit's not me.
I agree, but then looking from the other side in a bit different perspective, what about this nowadays on social media relentless focus on positivity, right? Where sometimes it might be people masking their underlying issues or kind of being a form, a way to escape the reality. What would be your take on this?
Yeah, that's a fair point. That really isn't helping very much. I mean, it depends. We all live in some sort of escapism, or we all do that to a certain extent. It's not helpful if I think you need to look at how somebody really is with you. So if you meet somebody in person or even over Zoom, right? It doesn't really matter what they say as words, even on social media, right? Because the vibe comes through.
Yeah.
And oftentimes we know it, right? 90 something percent is body language and other stuff. So on the one side, there's a good chance they might be trying to fake it till they make it, right? And if that's their story and they're going for it, I get it. I've tried that. Sometimes it works. It doesn't work really if you're suppressing something. So, if there's some part of you that is just not expressed at all, or you haven't given it a voice at all, that's not very helpful, right? Then it gets delusional. And when it gets delusional, then it's really hard to have a conversation with a person who's delusional. They can't really, they live in a world that's not here. And because we can have a vision, explore a vision, but this is still happening. So yeah, it's a bit like you'll probably notice it when somebody is saying, I'm not blonde, right? To this extent, and you see it like I'm blonde. Like that's the point where I say, this has nothing to do with positivity anymore. You're just not looking at what's actually in the mirror.
Yeah.
Right? So, but everything that's abstract, you can form positively, right? Everything that's concrete, I would just take it as it actually is.
How did people can transform from negativity biases and negative kind of mindset to a more positive? Do you have any kind of tools where the audience could start from?
Yeah, I mean, there's different approaches to it. There's Yeah, there's a couple of different tools for it. In the spiritual context, you would talk about frequency here, and actually they would even say that lower or negative or positive, there is no none of them is better than the other.
Mm-hmm.
Which is sometimes hard to grasp, because you're like, isn't it positive? Of course positive is better because it feels better, but there's no higher value really attached to it. It's just a higher frequency, higher vibration. So if you're saying I want to be more positive, what you're actually saying is, I would love to increase my frequency. And the way to increase your frequency often has to do with first stepping into, there's a certain level of frequency vibration that is the game changer in those two.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not to say that you can't have negative moments. We always think in permanence, but I'm saying we always go through negative, positive, like a roller coaster. But we're looking at how can you raise your baseline, right? So how can your baseline be a little higher so if your life feels better? And there's really one frequency, and that is courage, that actually brings you, that shifts.
Yeah.
And so that is oftentimes when you say, okay, yes, maybe things are shit, but no, you know what? They won't be, right? Making the decision. For example, for me, like that was the thing with love, right? The courage
Uh-huh.
was to go and be there anyway, although nobody else will be there. Right? It felt awkward first. And then I thought, oh, okay, that courage actually made it, right? That actually made me shift that vibration there. And it can be the same there. So courage really makes the big difference. Whatever you are currently afraid to do, and if you start doing that, you'll probably notice too. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
I'm not crazy shit, right? So I'm not telling anybody here to go out and risk their life or something.
Yeah.
But when we say, for example, you are like, when I would ask you what are you afraid of, and we would list all the things you're afraid of, and if you start actually doing them in a safe container somewhat, your vibration will probably, you would slowly shift into higher.
Yeah. That also gets back into your theory I mentioned before, that you are this like getting similar, the same from what the people you're hanging out with, right? The people you surround with yourself kind of resonate with your energy in a way, or will
Yeah,
match later on. It will bring you up, or it will bring you down as well. And you
true.
can really feel it. That's so interesting. And so we're kind of getting a bit closer to this kind of also the designing life, coaches, etc. But right now, what I see in all the social media, right, that quite a lot of people are claiming to be a coach. So maybe you can share more. What is a coach, and what you believe is a genuine life coach? Like,
Yeah. So I think I can start with therapy, because therapists are fairly
uh-huh,
established, right? We know when we
yeah,
go to a therapist, we would pay a certain rate. There will be some regulatory body would have signed off on their license, meaning they have done some sort of educational
uh-huh,
practice that's established by whatever. And then we'll talk about our lives, usually past, and we would try to reframe trauma so that we don't re-experience it today, right? That's like therapy. Coaching borrows a little bit from that. So you see some therapeutic practices in coaching, but coaching is saying you're generally okay, you're fine. There's nothing, like you don't suffer something that disturbs your everyday life significantly, but you have dreams. You want to create something in your life, and coaches help you basically create that. And it does actually work. The explosion of coaching, you could say, probably has happened a little bit because it works, right? So it's actually a
yeah,
good thing, right? In many cases, it does work if you actually commit to something and you see, all right, a coach can help me with that, and they actually do. That's fantastic. And so when there's many coaches, how do you know who to pick and stuff? Usually fairly simple. Most offer a test. Most offer kind of a discovery. And if you vibe with somebody really well,
mm-hmm,
if you have just a generally great conversation, if you're like, I would like hang out with this person, over dinner, if I could, then usually that's already a great sign. The second sign, usually what you can look at is their their client stories, anything that somebody has done with others before, because that gives you an idea. Okay, if they've done it once, maybe they can do it again. Just like in therapy, actually, any sort of certifications can be great, but they're not actually proving you anything. There is no proof that your life in the future will be great. There's no guarantee. And so I think the best you can really see is either when you see their past, or when something that they have done for you already has helped you. So you're like, okay, they've done, seems like there's, so that's usually a good idea to see it. And the way how coaching actually, the philosophy of coaching is that you have all the tools inside of you already. And as a coach, you guide. But the guiding is really fucking important because we can't guide ourselves. It's just, we can, but we don't see our blind spots. So seeing those, I myself have 2 coaches right now, and I've created a ridiculous amount of shit just because I'm doing business coaching with one, and I'm doing some really cool stuff with the other. So I would never stop it again.
Okay, so when was the first time you've got your own coach?
I'm not sure. A couple of years back. Okay. I was like, I just started the whole coaching education thing, and I couldn't really afford a coach myself yet. And so I think about 1 year into it, I started to.
And then now you have one business coach and another one like life coach, vision coach?
Yeah, you could say life. It's a specific skill I'm trying to learn that is fairly difficult to master. So
yeah, amazing. We hope we can follow later on the journey, whatever it is. And during all your career, so you're a life coach now, a life business coach, you also are known for some books that you have published. And if I'm correct, you've published 5 books, and especially around the themes love and relationships. So I'm very curious to ask this one question. When it comes to love, so how did your perception of love has evolved from the moment you wrote those books?
Yeah, it's while I was writing them, I thought it's simple, and still think to some extent. But because now I've been married for quite some time, I noticed love changes a little bit. And I know what love is to an extent. Like, it's basically this universal, over-expansive thing. You don't have to push it into a container. We often try to do that, and then we miss out on so many good things. For example, many people look for the one, right? But if you assume that there are many, then you can feel that all the time. Right? Being in love, you can actually feel that regularly every day. I tried that. It works. Right? So love is really, really big. There's so much. It's just waiting for you to tap into. So I feel like after writing it, a lot of stuff has changed, of course. I would definitely still sign the principles I wrote in all of them. So especially the love books, I think that's still my philosophy and works pretty well, including like having hardly conflicts, right? Where in your marriage you do well,
And how did you decide, I'm gonna write now a book, or 5 books in your case? How did that happen? You just one day you woke up and you said, I'm gonna be an author right now.
Yeah, I was learning a lot at the time, and it's tricky when you're learning a lot and you have no output.
Yeah.
Right. So this podcast as well is a way for you to have an output of what you're learning. And so for me, that was always important to when I keep learning and I keep creating. And books were a way of creating. And most people don't write books because they think it's too difficult. But actually, I found a way that it's very easy. In fact, I wrote 3 books in 3 months on my balcony.
Amazing.
While writing 10 minutes in the morning after my shower, And so I was like, and I had actually this kind of conversation. I had the session on stage where I tried to teach people this, and they sometimes would be just baffled and tell me that this makes no sense, because it was, everything I shared with them was sharing them how to swipe on the phone, because that's all it took. It took all of it was me to write a chapter on my phone. It took me to know that I'm swiping, and swiping gave me a texting speed that's so much faster, and I could write a chapter in 10 minutes.
Incredible. Right?
And the only other thing that was necessary was to tag this habit to an existing habit, habit stacking. So I stacked it to my shower, which is the most consistent habit everywhere I go. And I'd be like, okay, what if I was a writer for the next 3 months? And I would write every day, regardless how I feel.
Beautiful.
Boom.
No boundaries. So, what would you say someone who is waiting for that right moment to play full out in their life?
Well, make a choice. Draft a vision and then make a choice.
Draft the vision, make a choice.
Decide on what you haven't. If there's probably been something you've been waiting to decide, you've been asking somebody else's permission for. Just stop asking for permission. To make the choice and ask for forgiveness later, huh? That's a good one.
Would it match to the final kind of traditional part and the question for the audience? Like, what you would say to the audience who just listened to this episode to dive into today as they continue their journey and perception of self-discovery?
Yes, 100%. So there's a few different things that you definitely want to follow. One is check out the map of consciousness when it comes to negativity, positivity. A fantastic book, fairly spiritual book, but still really, really good when it comes to give you an idea of how vibration frequency works and how you can move through the levels. Second one, Essentialism by Greg McKeown. It's called The Disciplined Pursuit of Less, and that's why it's so difficult to, or seems difficult to do less. It requires discipline, right? But it's possible. That one changed the game for me to work 20 hours a week. And last but not least, I don't know. Well, I guess if you were to take any of my books, I think the one that I'm most proud of for some reason, because I wrote it the latest, is Communication for Extroverts. Because I noticed I talk quite a bit. And I was like, wouldn't it be great for people to figure out how to communicate better and be included? And that was one I'm proud of.
Beautiful. Thank you, Toma. It's been a pleasure exploring your journey. Final question: where can people follow you?
Thank you, Zivile. Well, my website, tomamolerov.com. Yes, I do post and stuff on Instagram pretty regularly, so you can check that out if you like, where I share tools. There's also a newsletter, but the website has all of it pretty much, yeah.
Thank you so much for joining Perception Paradox. It was great to have you.
Thank you so much. Glad to be here. Thank you, guys.